motivational insight into one of the most incredible events in US and world history. Joe is a Delaware resident, devoted husband and father of four, grandfather of four, and a founding member of the Naperville 9/11 Memorial Commission. So thank you, Joe, for being with us this evening. And I will turn it over to you to share your story with us tonight. I think you may be on mute.
You know, you would think after a year of this, we would get better, right? But unmute.
No worries. At least we can see your lips moving.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's an auspicious start. Sharon, first of all, thank you very much for the nice introduction and for being one of the two people, you and May, making sure that I could attend this meeting and present at this meeting. It's a great privilege and it's a great honor. I'm also going to age myself here for a second because I couldn't help it. Who is old enough to remember this? Tell me May didn't sound like Miss Connie from Romper Room when she was saying, I see Andy, I see. I mean, it was like unbelievable. And I said, it's Romper Room, man. This isn't PMI. Seriously, it was so much fun to see all the different people being introduced. And I wish you all great success in your futures. You know, this has been a whirlwind week for me. I've been speaking with people all around the world. We like big numbers. 20th anniversary is a big number. And here we are 20 years later, and it seems just like yesterday. Last week, we witnessed once more the elements of surprise and suffering as a result of an event that was totally unexpected, unanticipated. 51 people in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut made simple decisions to stay in their home or their apartment, to drive to their workplace, to drive to a supermarket, never knowing that the incredible rainstorms and powerful floodwaters of what had been Hurricane Ida would take their lives. Simple decision, just like that. Making decisions is a part of our everyday life, right? I mean, you guys know this better than anybody in what you do professionally. You all made a decision to come to this meeting this evening, share some ideas, make some connections, walk away with maybe plans or concepts that you didn't have prior to being here. You all make simple decisions. What do I wear? What do I eat? How do I spend my free time? And you make complex decisions. What college did I or should I attend? What do I do with my life? Whom do I marry? So on and so forth. These decisions, both big and small, develop what becomes our character. And those decisions are also heavily influenced by the information we receive and the understandings that we have of that information, the source of that data, the understanding of the effects of our decision-making process as well, sometimes for better or worse, can be incredible. And sometimes when you're in the midst of a critical decision-making process, we're often thrust into the role of leader and we're not even sure how we got there. Now, the decisions that you're making not only affect you, but they affect others. And those decisions could truly be life or death. It's one thing to have resource, data, information to make your decision, but many times that resource, that data doesn't exist and you're forced to make decisions with your gut feel. And you can't go with a flow because there is no flow to go with. So this is decision making with a true twist. So what makes me some kind of decision making expert? I'm an insurance guy. I'm not a project manager. You people are way smarter than me. But I do think that my decision-making capabilities were tried, tested, and verified on September 11, 2001. Well, on that day, I was on the 105th floor of 2 World Trade Center, the South Tower. And my being here today to speak to you is testament to critical decisions made by many of us in the most dire of situations. So I thought this evening it would be a great idea to share with you how those decisions affected our day and our lives. As I mentioned, I'm in the insurance industry. I've been in that industry. I have to update my little bio because it's now 44 years. They can't get rid of me. I've had the great pleasure for the last 5 years to work at home. So I was built for COVID. I was already a home worker, okay? And I love every minute of it. In the 44 years and prior to 9/11, the World Trade Centers were basically a mecca for the insurance industry. Virtually every insurance company in the country, maybe in the world, had offices there at the Trade Center. So it was not unusual for somebody in a position like mine to be called to a meeting there. In August of 2001, Mary Wieman, an extremely powerful woman at the Aon Corporation, she called me at my offices at CNA Insurance in Chicago, Illinois, where I was working, and I was living at that time in Aurora, Illinois, a western suburb. But she called me at the office in August, and she asked me to attend a meeting the following month at the two World Trade Center offices of Aon. And I kind of immediately hesitated to want to attend her meeting. I had the chance at the same time to attend another type of insurance meeting, the type of insurance meeting that involves aluminum, titanium sticks about this long, little metal heads on the end, little white balls in the grass. I had a chance to go golfing, okay? Business golf, but golfing. And so I kind of started to discourage Mary and kind of make her feel, I might not be able to make it, might be interference with something. But Mary did to me what every woman has been doing to me since the day I was born. Good old-fashioned Catholic guilt thrown down on my head. I mean, it was unbelievable. Sure, Joe, I understand. Nobody from CNA will be there. It's all right. No representation. Big meeting, but you won't have a representative there. Hey, you got to do what you got. And then she paused and she said, hey, do you know the president of your company? I kind of chuckled. I said, well, yeah, I report to the president of the company. Why do you ask? And she said, that's great. I have a meeting with him next week. I'm going to let him know that nobody from your company will be there. And oh yeah, I see how this works, right? Okay. So I did what my father taught me to do many, many years prior. Plan my work and work my plan. I figured, okay, I can win. I can do this. I can go to the golf thing. I can go to her meeting. I just got to plan it correctly and do what I got to do. And that's exactly what I did. The Friday before the Tuesday, I flew back from Chicago to Philadelphia, the city that I was born and raised in. And I visited with my mom and dad on Friday evening in the house I grew up in as a kid. On Saturday, I visited with my sister. If she was on here, she'd tell you I don't do that enough, and she's probably right. On Sunday, I went to the Philadelphia Eagles St. Louis Rams football game. That's what they were then, the St. Louis Rams. I always love to tell this story. I've been a season ticket holder to the Philadelphia Eagles football team since 1978. I continue to pay for those season tickets. And my son continues to sit his butt in the seats and I pay for it, okay? But it's okay. The bank of dad just never closes, all right? And all you Dallas people, I understand how you feel, but hey, Philadelphia Eagles fan, all right? Well, my son and I were going to the game that day, and my son works for Valero Oil, and he works on the pipelines, natural gas and propane in South New Jersey. He's the same height as me. He's about 5'8". He's much better physical shape than me, but he's a man who's slight, okay? But this job on the pipelines makes him feel like he's totally macho, okay? I mean, the job is tough. They call them, roughnecks. There's an emergency, a fire, whatever, a breakage. He leads a team of people to go out there. So it's tough work, and he thinks he's a tough guy. So this little tough guy is walking out of the game with me, and we're about halfway through the parking lot, and all of a sudden he reaches over and gives me this big giant hug. And he whispers in my ear, I miss you, Dad. And I push back and I actually see a little tear in his eye. Knew he wasn't crying because of the game. The Eagles beat the Rams back then. Everybody beat the Rams, okay? But I guess this was a pretense of what was about to occur in a couple of days, and we just didn't realize it at that time. He got in his truck, I got in my car, I went down to South Jersey to this beautiful Marriott Country Club and resort where I golfed the next morning. It was a lot of fun, had a fun lunch with the people I was golfing with. We had a real business meeting on Monday afternoon. We were going to have a classic insurance dinner on Monday night. And I say classic because I don't know what it's like in your business, but insurance dinners tend to begin and never end. All right. And they just go on forever and ever. And there's usually a bar associated, but hey, I don't want to, but anyhow, I had a plan. I could not pull an all-nighter with these guys because I had a good plan. If you've ever visited New York, if you are from New York, you know what I'm about to say is absolutely true. Nobody ever wants to drive into New York. The traffic is brutal. This wasn't any different. I was in South New Jersey. It's 80 miles to drive up there. I had a better plan. Get up early, go back to Philadelphia, take the train to New York. That was the way to fly. And that's exactly what I did. Got up at about 3:30 in the morning, got back to Philadelphia at about 5:30 a.m., bought my round trip ticket for the Metroliner, which pulled in at 6 a.m., walked down to the platform as the train was pulling in and took off. When I got to my seat, I took off my backpack, took off my suit coat, pulled out my laptop, turned my laptop on, set my laptop down on my lap, sat down in the seat and did what all of us insurance guys do at 6 a.m. in the morning on the Metroliner train with our laptops on our laps. I fell asleep. It was 6 a.m. It was much too early. And off the train went. And we were about 2/3 of the way up on the train to New York when my cell phone rang. I always love to talk about the fact that when I talk to young people, I have to remind them that yes, there was cell service all the way back in 2001, okay? The phones weren't smart, they were kind of dumb, but we did have cell service, okay? And so, before cell technology, before you had this type of communication capability, when you went on a business trip like this, you had to have a plan. It had to be an itinerary that was on a piece of paper, maybe even typed by a typewriter. Let's see who remembers one of those, okay? And it would tell you when your meetings were going to be, what time the meetings were going to be, where you were going to be staying, what your hotel assigned room number was. You always got the phone number of the hotel so that people could call you, because God forbid you would have to make a long distance phone call, right? But just in case, you brought your AT&T long distance card just so you can make sure the company was getting charged for it and not you. You had to have a plan. But now with cell phones, wherever you are, that's where you'll be. Just hit me up on the cell phone, right? You can call anybody anywhere. We can call anybody. We can call somebody in India just as easily as we can call somebody in Dallas, right? And it just makes life a whole lot easier. It was no different in 2001. Before this trip, I had not told my wife a whole lot. I had said to her, hey, I'm going to Philly to visit with the family, going to the game with Joe on Sunday. Got a meeting in New York Tuesday morning. I'll see you Tuesday night. I'll be coming home. And that's basically all I told her. You think I forgot where I was. I'm on the train. I'm fast asleep with my laptop warming my lap. And my cell phone rings. And it's my wife. And she clearly hears that I was asleep because she immediately apologizes. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to wake you up. And I clear my throat a little bit. I said, no, actually, it's great. It's great that you did, because the train's about to pull into Newark and I have to get off. And she said, Newark? I thought you said you were going to a meeting in New York. And I said, oh, yeah, I am. But it's a lot easier to get to the World Trade Center if you take the PATH train from Newark, because it stops right underneath the Trade Center. That morning, I told my wife exactly where I was going to be. And I made my way off that train with thousands of other New Jerseyans and on my way in the path into New York City in the Trade Center. When I arrived at Two World Trade Center, I was totally amazed when I walked inside by the security people in the building. You know, there were as many as 25,000 people in each of those buildings. 25,000 in each of those buildings. Each of those buildings had their own zip code. This is how big of a community this was. There are cities in Texas that don't have this many people easily, okay? And yet you've got two tall buildings like this. And what was amazing was you could walk in, like me, a visitor, and these security people in the building, just by looking at you, no identification card, no anything, knew who belonged and who didn't belong. It was incredible. And I guess the 93 bombing at the Trade Center made that a reality for the security team there. It's exactly what happened to me. I walked in, the security guy wiggled his little finger at me and he said, "Come on over here, you got to check in." Took my picture electronically. He transferred that picture onto a little white card, happens to be sitting right above my head here. And on that white card was my name, the floor that I was going to, 105, the company that I was visiting, Aon Corporation, how long the card was valid for. It was valid until September 12th, 2001, and a barcode. The barcode was the most important thing on the card, not just because it contained all the information I just mentioned electronically in there, but that was also the way that you would swipe your way through the electronic turnstiles that separated you from the elevator banks in the buildings. Both buildings were identical, 110 stories high. The 110th floor in the North Tower was the Windows of the World restaurant. Unfortunately, that was open at that time, this day. The 110th and 107th in the building that I was in, the South Tower, they were observation decks, and thank God it was too early for them to be open. The other floors I don't mention above 105 in both buildings were heating, ventilation, air conditioning, elevator equipment, elevator cabling, no human beings. We were ready to make our way up to 105, the highest occupied level of the South Tower at that moment in time. You had to choose amongst three banks of elevators. There's one set of elevators that serviced everything through the 43rd floor, another bank of elevators that would go on an express basis to 44, where then you would switch off to another set of elevators that would service everything through 77. And then there was the last bank of elevators that went from the ground level to 78 on an express basis, where you would get off and then get on another set of elevators that would service all the way up to 110. That was the bank of elevators that I got on. Got up to 78, 78 and 44, known as sky lobbies, second and third lobbies in the building, and then made my way up to 105. When the door opened from the elevator, there was Mary Weeman, the woman that had shamed me into being at this meeting. And it was kind of a surreal moment, because here's Mary. In one hand, she's got a spray bottle of Murphy's oil soap, and on the other hand, she's got a rag. Now, this was not Susie Homemaker by any stretch of the imagination, okay? But this was how important this meeting was to her. She wanted everything perfect, right down to the furniture that she had just finished polishing in the internal conference room that she was about to lead us to. She led us into that conference room, and there were 54 of us. And it's important to understand that it was an internal conference room, meaning that there were 4 walls, no windows, 1 door inside the 105th floor. The meeting was supposed to commence at 8:30. I've been in the business 44 years now. There's never been an insurance meeting that's ever started on time. And this day was no different. 8:30 kind of came and went, everybody standing around, drinking coffee, talking about anything but insurance, my God. And then at 8:46, the lights flickered. That's it, just a flicker of lights. We couldn't see anything. We didn't hear anything. We didn't feel anything, just this flicker of lights. Almost immediately, a gentleman by the name of Rick Blood from Aon came bounding into the room. He said, "Hey, there's been an explosion in the North Tower. We got to evacuate." 54 intelligent human beings, all in the same place, all at the same time, and we all did the same thing. "Rick, it's New York. Stuff happens." We weren't even that nice with our language. "Stuff happens. Let us have our meeting. We're going to be fine." He looked at us, kind of shook his head a little bit, and he said, "No, you don't understand. I'm one of those volunteer fire marshals. I got to empty 105, 104, and 103 before I leave, and I want to leave." I know Rick got everybody out of that conference room that day. I was the last guy out. He escorted us all to the nearest fire stairwell on 105. That's where he proceeded to tell all 54 Type A personalities that they were now going to walk down 105 flights of steps. Oh yeah, what a bunch of happy campers, okay? And everybody did the same thing. They all reached to their right or left hip. This is when you were the cool guy if you had a holster on your belt to hold your flip phone, right? Okay. So everybody reaches to their left or their right hip or in their pocket or wherever, and they pull out their cell phone. We were going to call somebody to moan and groan about the fact that we couldn't have our meeting. And something really interesting happened on the way to the cell phone. Everybody flipped them up. Like I said, everybody had flip phones back then. If you still have a flip phone, shame on you, okay? But everybody flipped up their flip phones, and you'd see this, no service. No service. The main cell tower for all of southern Manhattan was on top of the North Tower, the first building to be struck. Cell service was gone. This is a group of highly intelligent people. I'm sure you're thinking to yourself, great, if you need to communicate that badly, get on a landline. And that's a great idea. Except think about this. Everybody in New York are now on those landlines trying to call out to their mom, dad, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, spouse, whomever. And even more incredibly, everybody in the world, and that's not a stretch, everybody in the world that knows somebody in New York, they're now calling in on those landlines to try to find out how their family members and loved ones are doing, if they're making out okay. The landlines were overmatched. They couldn't handle the communication traffic. Cell service gone. Those of you who may have served in the military know what I'm about to say is absolutely true. The first thing you do when you attack the enemy is you cut the lines of communication. And whether the terrorists that morning knew they were doing that or not, whether it was planned or not, that's exactly what they did. So now you've got that group of 54 Type A's standing at 105, trying to call, trying to communicate, ready to roll, not knowing what to do. And we were pretty perturbed. We were upset. We were angry we weren't going to have our meeting. We were doubly angry we couldn't communicate with anybody because we're so used to being able to instant connect through the phones. And I'm sure you're all thinking to yourself, my God, didn't you understand what was going on? And that's the point. Each and every one of you knew way more what was going on outside and inside those buildings than any of us that were right there. We had no clue. We did what we were told. We started to make our way down the steps. When we got down to the 90th floor in the fire stairwell door was propped open. Shouldn't have been. Everybody knows that if there's an emergency, all those fire stairwell doors close if they're on a magnet automatically. There's signs in there that say, don't leave the fire stairwell except at the lobby level. Some insurance geek like me is responsible for that sign because that's fire safety, life safety, whatever. The 90th floor door was propped open and everybody's filing out of the fire stairwell and onto the 90th floor. But I'm in the fire insurance business. I know better. I followed everybody out. Followed everybody out onto the 90th floor. Didn't know the building, didn't know whether I needed to get to another fire stairwell, but I can tell you, it was the worst 30, 40 seconds of my life. You look out these windows to the North Tower, you see these gaping black holes through the sides of the building, gray and black billows of smoke pouring out of those holes, flames redder than any red I had ever seen before in my life, licking up the sides of the building. And folks, it was a crystal clear day in New York City. And I remember being able to see through that smoke, through that fire, into those huge black holes and seeing pieces of the fuselage of a large plane lodged inside the other building. And my first thought was, my God, how did the pilot not see this building? How did he miss? He didn't miss. You see all this, you see, because of the force of that plane through the building, you get this vacuum effect, and it's pulling out furniture, paper, people against their will. An incredible, gruesome sight. And I was so afraid. I was so afraid. I just wanted to go home. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to go home. I turned around to leave, and I noticed right away there were people on that floor screaming at the top of their lungs, and yet they seemed to be frozen. Whether they were frozen in fear, mesmerized by what they saw, I knew I just wanted to get out of there. And I turned to leave. And at that very point, just as I was approaching the fire stairwell to get back in, they make an announcement over the PA system. The event has been contained to the North Tower. We suggest that the South Tower is safe. We suggest that if you work in the South Tower, you return to your workstation. If you are a visitor, we ask that you stay where you are until further notice. If you feel you need to leave, please proceed with caution. Yeah, how do they make that type of announcement, right? Actually, made a lot of sense. At this point in the event, there's a woman or man that's in charge of building security down at the lobby level. You know, at this point, there's a firefighter on one side, there's a police person on the other side. They're looking back at this building manager or building security manager, and they're looking at this person and saying, you got 25,000 people in this building and you can't let them out. It's raining concrete, steel, bodies. What are you going to do? And I'm sure this person thought to themselves, well, wait a minute, our electric is running, our ventilation system's up and going, the elevators are going up and down. Let's just wait and see what's going on. Let's not panic. Let's just hold off and see what's happening. Who would have thought that within 18 minutes, the same exact thing would happen to our building? Who would have thought? I wasn't hesitating. I wasn't staying. I was going. I got down to the 78th floor, that sky lobby level that I mentioned earlier. And when I got down there, Mary Lehman, my friend, the woman who had invited me to this meeting, she's out in front of me and she's screaming at me, back at me at the top of her lungs, Joe, come with me, come with me. I am not walking down 78 flights of steps in these shoes. She was using a word I'm sure you never use in Dallas in between there, okay? But this was Mary. She was an extremely powerful woman. She was a great leader. She had smashed through the glass ceilings that unfortunately still exist in some of our businesses today. And I thought about this for about a second. Finally, my pea brain hit the right chord. I thought like an insurance guy. Building, state of duress, fire, emergency. Yeah, I know it's not my building, but don't get in an elevator. I looked at Mary, never said a word to her, gave her a little wave, turned around and went back to the fire stairwell. Arguably the best decision that I've made in what is still my life. I was somewhere between 74 and 72 when the second plane plowed through our building. That plane went through our building between floors 77 and 83. We were just a few short stories below that strike zone. Folks, I have never felt anything like that and never, ever want to feel anything like that again in my life. That fire stairwell, that concrete bunker that we were inside, started to shake so violently back and forth. The concrete spidering out, the handrails breaking away from the wall, the steps like waves in the ocean undulating underneath our feet. And we feel this heat ball blowing by us, and we smell this jet fuel, and this thing's just rocking back, forth, back, forth, back. felt like forever. Maybe it was only seconds, maybe a minute, and it finally settled. And you would think that there would be massive pandemonium in that stairwell, and yet we followed that with a stunned silence. We all tried to do the same thing again. We grabbed the cell phones, tried to communicate. And you know what? It was a good thing they weren't working at that point. Ignorance was bliss. What we didn't know couldn't hurt us. We had no information. We started to guess. We saw a plane in the other building. A fuel cell exploded. That's why we felt the heat balls, smelt the jet fuel. Never did we think a plane had flown through our building just 3-4 stories above where we were. But we only had left to do what was the right and the most appropriate thing to do, and that's concentrate on getting out. And in those next few seconds, as we started down those steps again, we saw what we don't see enough in life, but we always see in the most dire of circumstances. We saw it again just last week during the storms. Human nature at its finest. There were people in that stairwell that were coming off crutches, coming off a cane, getting out of a wheelchair, people that were just overweight, people that were just freaked out and didn't know what to do. And people just like you and me, were helping those that needed help, both physically and emotionally. It was truly a thing of beauty. It was a wonderful scene of great human nature. We all became teammates and we all started to help each other, coaxing and coaching each other down the steps. Egress was pretty simple, 3-4 people wide. If anything was in your way, whether it was a backpack or bags of food or somebody's overcoat or a briefcase or women's shoes, lots and lots of women's shoes. I guess, you're 70 floors above ground and you're not going to go down in 3 or 4 inch heels. A lot of barefooted women that day. Whatever it was, you just kicked it aside. And we were all heading in the same direction until the 35th floor. And that's the chance we had for the first time to encounter the cops, the firefighters, the paramedics from New York City and the Port Authority. Just the looks in their eyes told the story. Just the looks in their eyes. No words. They knew. They knew. They knew that they were going up those steps to try to fight a fire that they couldn't beat, try to save lives that they couldn't save. And they knew that they were going up those steps, and they knew that they were never coming back. They knew. They knew. Could you be that brave? Could you be that strong? Right at that same time, there was a young gentleman walking to my left the entire time. He had with him one of the most annoying inventions God ever allowed us to create, the Nextel phone with the walkie-talkie feature, okay? And he had been walking along with us for the longest of times, clearly a maintenance guy from the building, brown shirt with a blue yoke and a name tag over his pocket, a name I never got. And all of a sudden, this Nextel started to belch and beep and make all kinds of electronic noise. And we hear this voice scream out, "We're on 82. We can't get down. We don't know what we're going to do." And this kid stops, turns on the balls of his feet, and proceeds to try to go back up the steps. And I looked over at him. He's just to my left. And I said, "Where are you going to go? What are you going to do?" And he looked back at me and he said, "I'm not sure, man, but I got to save my friend." A nameless maintenance man. That's a true American hero. That man willing to lay down his life to save that of a friend. I can only hope the cops and the firefighters turned that kid around that day and made him get out of the building. When we got down to the lobby level, you start looking out left and right, these huge arching glass windows in the lobbies of the building, and you see what looked like the vestiges of war. Crumbled concrete, twisted steel, big giant red markings or blotches on the ground, and you knew what those red blotches were. They couldn't let us out at the street level. It was raining concrete, steel bodies. So they escorted us all down into the underground, the concourse level of the complex. And when we got down there, that was the chance we had for the first time to encounter people in real need, missing limbs, gaping wounds, true blood and guts trauma. And human nature, like I mentioned before, it's a wondrous thing, and it makes you, even in that circumstance, as gruesome as it is, want to reach out and help. And we couldn't that day. And the reason that we couldn't help was because there were so many first responders there to help. I've never seen in one place at one point in time such an outpouring of caring, of concern, of love. And that's what this was this day, this total outpouring of love. So the people that needed help were getting the help they needed. And those of us that were okay, we're on our own. And the herd mentality takes over, and you hope somebody at the front of your herd knows where the heck they're going, because you're now in this rat maze of corridors with every fast food known to mankind, every little retail operation known to mankind, big giant train station to take you over into New Jersey on the path, signs that mean absolutely nothing to you if you're not from New York, 1, 2, 3, 4, red, blue, green, yellow, uptown, downtown, you have no clue. And I heard this kid in the front of our little group, and he yelled out, "We want to get to the northeastern end of this complex because it's the furthest away from the buildings." My internal GPS said, "He's right. I'm following him." And off we went, winding our way through these corridors, and we're about to make our final left, and there it is, folks. Starbucks. And it's open. And there are people in line. I kid you not. Listen, I'm a card-carrying member of the Starbucks Nation.
No way.
Oh, way. Way. I heard that. And I mean, it's unbelievable to see this sight. What was even more unbelievable was there was a woman cop screaming at this kid who was in the store to shut down. And he looked out at her and he said, "But I got a line." I guess he thought he was getting good tips. I'm not sure, but unbelievable. I didn't get in line. I proceeded to get up to the northeastern end of that complex with everybody else. The escalator is no longer escalating, and now we're going to march our way up these steps to the street level. As I'm ascending these escalator steps, I hear my name called out. I turn around. It is David Duffy. David Duffy is a friend of mine and a business associate of mine for 30 out of my 44 years. One of the brightest, most intelligent young men I've ever met in this business in all my life. And he's calling out my name, and I said to him, David, what are you doing here?" And then I had that Homer Simpson moment. "Oh, that's right, you work here." Yeah. "David, why are you behind me?" Because he was behind me, right? And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "David, what do you work? 53, 54. I was on 105, and you're behind me." He goes, "Yeah, you're right. I'm 54. And I said, "So what's the story?" And he says, "You don't want to know." I said, "David, I want to know. You should be long gone." He said, It was about halfway down, about 25 flights down. And I realized maybe the office won't be open tomorrow. And I had to go back up because I'm in charge of the Yankees tickets. I had to go get the Yankees tickets. Guys, I couldn't understand if they were the vaunted Cowboys tickets, but my God, the Yankees, the smartest human being I know goes up 25 flights of steps to get the Yankees tickets. And it's just like the people in the Starbucks. Not always the greatest minds are thinking in the greatest way in an emergency circumstance. Absolutely proven. But there was a reason for this one. Fate was at play. When we got to the street level, they're bobcat bulldozing everything. I mean, everything, and it's gruesome. Absolutely gruesome. Bobcat bulldozing it back. Every uniform that's there is screaming at us, "Run, run, run. Do not stop. Do not stop." We get in front of St. Paul's Chapel across the street from the complex, and we stop. You turn around. You look at these buildings in this incredible state of duress. You see this ticker tape of concrete and steel and bodies. And David looked at me and he said, so what are you going to do? I said, I don't know, David. I came up here today from Philly. I'm supposed to get back on the train, get to Philly. I got a rental car there. I'm going to drive over to the Philly airport, fly back to Chicago. I'm thinking that's not going to happen. And he said, I think you're right. And then he said, listen, why don't you come with me? I live in the Upper West Side. My wife works on 40 in the North Tower. I haven't heard from her. I want to get home. I want to make sure things are okay. So come with me. And I said, that sounds great. Let's do it. And we started to make our way north. We were only 8 minutes north of the complex, 8 blocks. And we came across a commercial laundry. The doors were thrown wide open. WINS, the all news radio station in New York, is blaring out that this is an on purpose terrorist attack. Our jaws just dropped to the ground. Not here. This doesn't happen here. This is the first we knew what exactly was going on. But almost immediately, it was the next couple of things that we heard that are the sounds that people like myself that were there that day hear every day. First, the unmistakable sound of the crumbling concrete, the twisting steel of what once was the North Tower, the building that we had just been in, the South Tower, coming to the ground. Even more hauntingly, the sound of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people all screaming the same blood-curdling scream all at the same time. We were really lucky. David had a friend of his that lived in the Tribeca section of the city where we were, and we were able to get into Meredith's apartment. Her husband, ironically, now stuck in Chicago, which is where I wanted to be. And we did what all of you did at that point. We watched the television. We tried to make sense of what was going on. We continued to try to communicate. It was impossible. Nothing was getting through. Nothing was getting out. About 5.5 hours into the event, one of the true heroes of that day, no matter what you think about him now, good, bad, or ugly, the mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani, he got on the TV and it felt like he was reaching out to each and every one of us. And he started to talk and he said, folks, this has been a tough day, but this is New York. We will survive. We will recover. And I know all of you just want to get home. And no truer words were ever spoken. And he said it again. He said, I know all of you just want to get home. Remember those pictures, folks? People walking over the George Washington Bridge to New Jersey, walking out the Long Island Expressway, the Long Island Railroad out to the island. I mean, every form of transportation was locked down. Giuliani understood everybody just wanted to get home. And then he said, I believe I've mustered enough confidence in our uniforms, in our security. We're going to reopen the subways. Reopen the subways. My God. My friend David looks at me and he said, come on, we're going up to my place. We're taking the subway. I said, David, my God, we can't go through Midtown Manhattan, Empire State. But we didn't know what the next target was going to be. We didn't know. But he was convincing, and off we went. We tried to get down the steps at the nearest subway station, and it was so crowded, it took us a little while to finally get down there. We got on the second or third train that pulled in, subway train that pulled in. We had heard prior to getting to the subway that Amtrak was bringing empty trains in from New Jersey and getting as many people out of New York as they could on those trains. And David knew that all I wanted to do was get out of New York, even if it was just back to Philadelphia, where I started my morning. And we got on that subway car, went 2 stops. It was Penn Station, Amtrak. He looked at me, I looked at him, no words. We walked out of the subway car together. He knew I wanted to get to Philly. There was a woman from Amtrak, God bless her, and in her greatest New York accent, she looks over at me and she says, where you going, honey? And I said, I want to get to Philadelphia. And she said, great, there's a train down here about to take off. And I reached into my coat pocket. I had a round trip ticket. I went to give her the ticket. And she said, are you kidding me? We are not collecting tickets today, sweetie. Some things never change in New York, okay? But unbelievable. We get down the steps, you get on the train, you come underneath the Hudson River through a tunnel, you come up on the Jersey side and look at what once was the greatest skyline in all the world, now relegated to a gray and black cloud. How sad. 80 minutes on the train from New York to Philly, crowded with people sitting, standing. No words. There were no words to say. When we got down to Philly, I was lucky, like I had mentioned, I had this rental car, so I had some level of transportation that I could use. I opted not to try to drive back to Aurora, Illinois, the western suburb that I lived in, as a 14-hour trip from Philly, and I just wasn't up, as you can well imagine, on that day to do it. Instead, I decided that I would go up to Northeast Philly and stay in my parents' house, the house I grew up in as a kid. And when I got there, my mom was waiting for me. Oh man, I got to tell you, especially you guys, always love your mothers. Love
Amen.
Amen,
Amen.
brother.
your mother.
Yeah.
Because there's my mom. She comes off the steps. She gives me this big giant hug, pats my head, sobs in my ear, my baby, my baby. And I have the heart at that moment to remind her that I was the oldest one. But my mom did for me what my mom continues to do for me to this day. She helped me, and she loved me. That's what I needed right then, was my mother's love. My God, that's what I needed, was my mother's love. She helped me into the house, sat on the floor, tried to watch TV, passed out. I don't know, mental exhaustion, physical fatigue, whatever. At about 2 a.m, I feel this kick in my side, and I rub my eyes, push my glasses back. I look up over my head. It's my father. He's hovering over me. And he said, well, aren't you ever going to go to bed? And I went, oh my God, I'm 17 again. But I did what he told. I went up to bed, got a few hours of sleep, woke up the next morning early, called the office to let them know that I wasn't going to be in. And it was a good thing, because they thought I was dead. And I proceeded to make that 14-hour car drive from Philly to Aurora, Illinois. I did it in 12 and a half hours. I don't propose that that's necessarily a bright idea, but I just wanted to get home. I just wanted to get home. And this was before we all had our international plans where you can call India just as easily as you can call downtown Dallas, right? Back then you had, minutes, you had limited the minutes and data, and I didn't care. I wanted to reach out and touch somebody. I wanted somebody to do the same with me. And I talked to anybody that would listen. And I was about 10, 15 minutes away when I called my wife for probably what was like the 50th time. And I said to her, hey, I'm almost home, almost there. And she said, okay. And I said, there's hesitation. What's up? And she said, well, they're about to have a mass at Our Lady of Mercy. And I stopped her right there, mid-sentence, didn't let her finish, and said, you know what? It's a good day to go to church. I'll be there. I'll meet you there. Pulled down Eola Road, tried to pull into the parking lot. You would have thought it was Christmas. No room at the inn. Finally found a spot on the street. And I don't know whether I was more afraid the day before, or the minute I opened up the back doors to that church, seeing these hundreds of pairs of eyes all staring back at me, knowing where I had been. And I looked over to the right, to the pew where we always sit. Roman Catholics, we always sit in the same pew, right? And there is my wife, a couple of my kids, some of my friends. I don't know how I got so lucky to marry the most wonderful woman in the world that I've married. She's my best friend. She's my soulmate. She is my one and everything. What she isn't is me. And that means she's not demonstrative. She doesn't do anything like this. She would never do anything like this, talking and speaking like this. It's not her style. And that's what made it doubly incredible when I looked over to the right and saw this non-demonstrative woman jump over the back of the pew, run to the back of the church, give me the greatest hug and a kiss a man could ever want. I knew at that moment that I was home. I was home. And so that's how this story goes. And the life lessons and the lessons learned in that are so many and varied that it's almost impossible to recap them all. But we started by talking about decisions and decision making. And some of the key lessons are pretty clear. Every decision that is made is important, no matter how big, no matter how small they may seem. A decision, any decision, can have greater effects and results than you may have ever assumed. The source of your information, of your data, of your understanding of the situation that you bring to the decision-making process impacts that process in a big way, either for better or for worse. And the most important lesson, making the right decision is not easy. It isn't easy. But if you trust your source, if you trust your data, if you trust your gut, your heart, your mind, your soul, you can make successful, critical decisions that can have lasting effects, helping to mold, to direct, and maybe even save you and even the lives of others.
Yeah, big time.
I don't tell this story, folks, in order to feel better of what only breaks my heart again and again. I don't do it for fame or notoriety. I don't do it for monetary gain. I never have charged for my presentations. I do this because I believe who's a person who's been a part of a historic event. It is my obligation, it is my duty to tell the story, to give a voice to the 3,000 people who lost their voices that day so that they once more can be heard and allow their spirits so senselessly dashed to once more rise, reminding them and reminding us that while they may have lost their lives, they didn't lose their lives in me. And while I seek no compensation, I do seek payment from each and every one of you in one way and in one way only. To always remember and to never, never forget. God bless PMI Dallas. God bless the great state of Texas. And most importantly, God bless America. Thank you, everybody.
Woo! Thanks, Joe. Oh my gosh.
You're quite welcome.
Wow, thank you so much.
I won't ever forget, ever. Oh
God
my
bless
gosh.
you. God bless you.
That was amazing.
Thank you, Joe.
God bless you, my friend.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I'll take all the blessings you can
Thank you,
send my
Joe.
way, okay?
Thank you, Joe.
You're quite welcome. You're quite welcome.
Thank you
Thank you
so
for having
much.
the courage to share this.
I'm glad you were able to do it in this fashion. It's so nice that we've all learned from our last year and a half inside our own homes that we can actually still communicate, reach out, touch. I would have loved to have been there live with you. You would have loved to have been there live at the meeting. We'll meet someday. I'm sure we will. And I'm just, again, thankful to your organization for allowing me to present. You think you're getting me, I'm doing you a favor by giving this presentation. And honestly, folks, you're doing me the favor by listening to the story, allowing me to remind you all of what had occurred, asking you to never forget, and helping me in a cathartic way get through the circumstance. My oldest daughter, a scientist, has many times said to me, will you ever get by this, Dad? And I said, absolutely not. It's not something you ever get by. It's something that you learn to manage. And you folks have been a great part of my day today and helping me manage my circumstance. And I love you for it. Thank you. It's greatly appreciated.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Been such a blessing.
Now, and what's really great, folks, is now you don't have any drive. You're already home.
Yes.
May, it's great to see you again. And if I can ever do anything for your organization or anybody that you're associated with, you just let me know.
Thank you so much, Joe. You were always on our top of our list, and appreciate you sharing. This is my second time hearing your story. I still had tears coming out my eyes, especially the moment a lady say, "Go, you don't need to pay for this ride." And Sharon was asking me this, and I say, Joe definitely put the vivid picture in everybody's heart. Even I'm not there, I feel I was there with you.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. And Sharon, is there any closing comment and remark? Joe, we are going to post on your LinkedIn. Hope anyone who desire to connect with you, feel free. I already post that there. Thank you, Joe. And thank you, each of the chapter member. And please be kind to each other. This is the opportunity you regroup yourself in spirit and support each other. Thank you. Sharon?
May, is the recording going to be available?
Yes, the recording will be available. We will work with our volunteer team to post, and we will share with the attendees.
So I want to share it with my son and my daughter, my wife. Yeah, thank you.
Please tell the kids. It's so important because they are our future and they need to understand this part of history that they weren't even around for.
Absolutely. You know, I'm sorry to interrupt, but my son and I were talking earlier today, and he was talking about how his generation, he's 33, you know, experienced half-life without 911 and the rest of life with it. And yeah, it's quite impressive. Thank you so much for talking there.
Very well.
Thank you. So any closing remark from Program's team, Sharon and Pat?
I just wanted to thank everybody for coming today, and especially Joe for coming to talk to us. And we hope that you enjoyed this. I don't have a poll for you. You know, if you'd like to hear more sessions of this type, you know, let us know. I know we usually have a lot of technical things to talk about and project management things to talk about, but there were project management steps and lessons in everything he says.
Thank you so much, Pat. And we would love to reach out to most speakers. If you know someone, some topic, feel free to send it our way. Thank you, Jerry, to be here. Thank you, Joe Carson, our past president, then Ariana, Valerie, and thank you for each of the board and volunteer, Rama, Elaine. Appreciate it. If you guys would like to be part of our volunteer team to do something meaningful to impact other people's life, maybe you can consider to join PNI Dollar chapter volunteer team. And I will share VRNS. You can search vrns.pni. Then we do have an opening role that actually only have a once a month. That is the director of the social event. If you want to have something lighter, feel free to join and start to serve. I think the most important thing is your willingness, and don't worry about your experience. You're not quite sure. Let us help you. You can help more people. Thank you so much. I'm going to put the link here for VRNS if you are considering to be part of volunteer. Have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for
Thank
attending.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Great meeting. Great
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you.
Thank
Remember to
you.
stop the
Thank you.
recording.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.